Archives of Prasar Bharati presents the timeless treasure of golden era.
Welcome to Living on the Edge. We've put together a program with lots of action that takes you from Bengal, where the conflict between man and elephant has reached frightening proportions, to Bangalore, which is in danger of losing its incredible climate as development destroys the last remaining green areas. We also show you how you can make a fresh start this year in reducing the use of plastic, and finally, we examine the global impact of ozone depletion. If your idea of an elephant is that of a large, patient, gentle creature, you wouldn't be far wrong. But you'd be surprised to know that habitat loss and forest destruction is actually transforming the behavior of wild elephants. This was apparent in the Midnapur district of West Bengal, when Living on the Edge accompanied villagers as they chased groups of rampaging elephants from their fields. Here, Priya Somaya analyzes the reasons for aberrant elephant behavior and asks if they're really to blame.
It's 6:30. Just after sunset. The idyllic calm of Gucci Soul village has been shattered by the arrival of a herd of wild elephants. As the elephants lumber into paddy fields in search of food, the villagers prepare to drive out the animals.
Protocol calling line to please response. আচ্ছা, আমরা এখানে ফিল্ডে আছি এবং আমরা হাতির পালকে তো পেয়েছি এবং সেইগুলোকে সব সোসাইটি থেকে পাঠাবার চেষ্টা করছি।
For the past 3 hours, we've been accompanying villagers as they've been trying to drive out a herd of 30 to 40 elephants. This herd has been visiting this village every night for the past week, and villagers live in virtual terror as the elephants rampage through their fields and frighteningly close to their homes.
And this has been happening for years. Each winter, these elephants follow a set migratory pattern. Starting out from the Dalma sanctuary in eastern Bihar, they move to Midnapur and other districts in West Bengal. Strange though it may seem, this is natural for elephants, who move in search of better feeding grounds according to the seasons and rain. In time long past, they moved in continuous forests that have now disappeared. Man has left few forests untouched.
It is a sad situation. These elephants have lived in Dalma Hill for centuries perhaps. there is something adverse happening in Dalma. Pressure by man, loss of habitat, possibly a huge canal which is being dug up called the Suvarnrekha irrigation, which makes them move elsewhere.
As a result, elephants that need large areas to forage find themselves hemmed in small patches of jungle, surrounded by villages and fields. Bewildered, even confused, they are forced to cultivate a taste for crops as a last resource. Over a period of time, they actually get addicted to paddy, sugarcane or corn. And that's where the conflict with man begins. Pachyderms, that's the scientific term for them, eat up to 150 kilograms of food a day. And often the way they obtain the food is far from subtle. They are even known to tear down huts where harvested crops are stored. Take the East Midnapur district for instance. Just when the fields are lush and ripe for harvesting, after months of hard work, the elephants appear. With almost uncanny precision, just one visit is enough to destroy everything.
গ্রামেও হাতি ঢুকে যাচ্ছে, ঢুকে যেয়ে ঘরে ঘর ভাঙছে, গরু বাছুর ছানাপোনা রাখা না মুশকিল ব্যাপার হয়ে গেছে, বুঝেছেন? এই হাতি আর কতক্ষণ আর আপনি আগুলেই রাখবেন? হাতি তো এক জায়গায় থাকার নয়। আর আগে হাতি ক্ষতি করতো ধারে ধারে কম, এখন তো পুরো মাঠকে মাঠ শেষ করে দিচ্ছে। আর এত সংখ্যায় কোনোদিন বেশি আসেনি, এবছর যে পরিমাণে এসছে।
Sometimes it's not just the crops that are under threat. The day before our team arrived, a young boy in this village was trampled and is battling for life. Over the past few months, 4 people have been killed and scores injured. Not surprisingly, villagers have been forced to take drastic measures.
Because of this conflict, elephant behavior does change. When they're harried and pursued, they become much more aggressive. Family groups are much more docile because females have to look out for babies, so they are more timid. But even their behavior, as we've seen, particularly in West Bengal, they are becoming more aggressive, and even though they are being driven, they will come outside, they will attack human beings.
In fact, earlier this year, an elephant was declared rogue and had to be shot. Sometimes, as villagers chase the animals away, baby elephants fall into wells or trenches and are later abandoned by the herd. Recognizing the problem, Project Elephant seeks to recreate traditional migratory routes that have been destroyed over the years. The government of West Bengal is attempting to do this.
Since 1987, our forest cover has improved a lot. We have improved the forest land rather, gone for fodder plantation, improvement of water hole, water regime.
But just increasing forest cover is not enough. Elephants need to go back to their natural diet and lifestyle, and that needs an imaginative and innovative approach.
It is being managed entirely in human terms as a law and order problem. People are killed, so let's do something about it. Or fields are eaten. Instead of a policing type approach against these elephants, we should take a scientific approach. We should see their behavior pattern. What do they need? What species of trees need to be planted?
Until that happens, the predicament of elephants can only worsen, and conflict with man can only increase. In fact, as far back as 1963, public outcry against human casualties led the UP government to issue permits to shoot marauding elephants. In all, 27 elephants were shot and many injured. In West Bengal too, the relationship between man and beast seems to be reaching breaking point, with villagers becoming increasingly agitated about human killings. Many environmentalists fear that a time may come when elephants will have to be trapped and transferred to zoos. If that happens, the elephant will no longer roam free and reign supreme in its natural habitat. The question is, have we exhausted all innovative strategies that could permit a happy coexistence of animal and man? Or will we take the path of least resistance?
Speaking of the path of least resistance, we've decided to give in to the overwhelming demand expressed by thousands of our viewers and run the addresses they've asked for again. So grab a piece of paper. Remember that small-scale enterprises using eco-friendly technology enjoy tax relief and government loans. Besides, they are sustainable, renewable and non-polluting. Our next story is actually a report from Bangalore, prompted by letters from our viewers. At first glance, the well-intentioned but ill-conceived village the Karnataka government is constructing for the National Games seems like just another case of development overtaking the need for open space and green areas. But if seen as part of a concretizing trend that is destroying the last remaining green areas, Bangalore could end up losing not only its garden city epithet, but also its wonderful climate. Manira Alva reports.
Few people were surprised when the 1996 National Games were assigned to Bangalore. After all, Bangalore is the fastest growing city in India with admirable infrastructure. And yet, the state government seems to have locked itself in a protracted battle with voluntary groups over the location of the Games village. 5,000 flats are being built for the 4,000 athletes and officials who will descend on the state capital for 11 days. Once the Games are over, the government intends to allot 1,200 of these flats to bureaucrats and judicial officers. The rest are to be distributed on the open market.
Sounds very silly that to house some athletes for 11 days, this whole project has been, given way. So I think this has to be, these kind of things have to be stopped, and the public have to get, more active, and they should protest against these kind of things.
Although at present the controversy is restricted to the manner in which the decisions were taken and allegations of corruption, there are other facets to the problem that few are aware of. To begin with, the site in question was reserved to be a park falling within the designated green belt. Secondly, it functions as a wetland, which makes it a halting spot for migratory birds in the heart of the city.
Wetlands account for perhaps around 4% of Bangalore's area and support wildlife in quite disproportionate to their area of extent. They account for nearly 41% of our bird life. Bangalore has somewhere around 330 species, out of which, apart from what is accounted for by wetlands, urban gardens and parks account for nearly 31% of our bird life.
Any wetland, whether it's man-made or natural, it should be preserved. These areas in the city form cold pockets, and say for example when you're traveling past that place in the evening in the hot summer, you'll suddenly find that the temperature is dropping by about 4 or 5 degrees. The heating up of the city can be prevented.
Just how the Karnataka Housing Board, the Public Works Department, and financing agencies like HUDCO feel about virtually destroying a green belt is impossible to gauge. All these agencies remained unavailable for comment despite repeated requests from living on the edge for over 2 weeks.
When the layouts are being marked out and all, these things will be earmarked for green belt and for parks and things like that. But all of a sudden, once that development comes in, and once BDA and the authorities put in a lot of money, then the land price suddenly shoots up. Then, as you know, a lot of officials who have a little bit of influence and things like that will get, say, one extra row of sites made and another double row of sites made. Finally, that thing becomes very small, and the green belt, the green areas are removed.
Yes, this is happening all over Bangalore, and not only housing complexes, but there are a lot of commercial, shopping complexes and these kind of things are coming up in, green spaces and parks and land meant for civic amenities, especially like playgrounds and other things. These have been encroached.
And as long as municipal plans remain shrouded in secrecy, as the plans for the Games Village supposedly are, things can only get worse. Even the location is not identified on government documents. Living on the Edge was able to identify the precise location with the help of some of our viewers who wrote in to us saying a designated green area was in danger of disappearance. It's ironical that the green areas that led to Bangalore being called the Garden City are being systematically eliminated. Not only will this alter Bangalore's almost incredible climate in the long term, but also increase the pressure on land to an unprecedented degree. We end here with the opinion of one of our concerned viewers who wrote in to us and prompted this story.
Wetlands are virgin lands of nature. They support the life system completely, from small organisms to, birds and animals and everything. So these buildings needn't have to come up there. If they're going to hold national games, let them build buildings somewhere else, because wetlands are found very less. That in cities like Bangalore, we don't have many natural surroundings like that.
That was one of our viewers making an impassioned plea for balanced development that is in harmony with nature. His sentiments are echoed by Priya Gopinath of Bombay, who sent us a poem that symbolizes the essence of our next section. If you share the environmental concerns of Priya Gopinath, Jackson George of Changanacheri, Kerala, and dozens of our other viewers, all you have to do is join Nandini Rajwade in declaring war on plastic in 1995.
When you sip a soft drink from a plastic cup, carry your groceries home in a plastic bag, or buy plastic containers, you are creating a disposal problem of Himalayan proportions. All over the world, governments and other agencies struggle to dispose of millions of tons of plastic waste each year. Some pass the buck by simply exporting it to third world countries, whilst others are evolving somewhat expensive substitutes to plastic. But what is it about plastics that makes them so harmful? To begin with, plastic takes decades, even centuries to decay. Plastic in biscuit packets takes over 5 years to decompose. Bags take over 20 years, and plastic rings, which hold beer and drink cans together, take over 100 years. Plastic bottles last almost indefinitely. Besides, plastic has limitless applications in all fields, and substitutes are not easy to come by. As a result, when disposed of, it simply piles up, suffocating the land and poisoning groundwater. Burning plastic is disastrous as it gives off dangerous gases which are harmful both to people and to the environment. But where do individuals come in? They come in at several critical moments. Plastic waste is ground into granules and sold to plastic goods manufacturers. This means you can separate your plastic waste and sell it to the kabadiwala, or even hand it over to boys who sift through garbage in the neighborhood. The problem with recycling in India is that it is fairly primitive, and often toxic fumes are released into the atmosphere. You can help by reusing your plastic packets and bottles rather than simply acquiring new ones. The more plastic you have, the more difficult it is to get rid of. Ideally, individuals and families can drastically reduce the viability of plastics by using cloth bags for shopping, buying recycled goods, and using other containers instead of plastic ones. For instance, Rubber shoes are a suitable alternative to plastic shoes. You can also use wooden brushes and ceramic kitchenware, avoiding plastic at every instance. And remember, you don't have to accept your aerated drink in a plastic cup. Individual action is far more powerful than it seems, and it's expressed quite simply and effectively by Priya Gopinath, one of our viewers, when she says, "It just takes a minute to think and resolve. Than till disaster wait. Is it so difficult to try and understand? Little drops make the sea. The sea soon joins the ocean. What little we can do, we must."
At international conferences on the environment, ozone depletion is one problem that is the focus of great debate and controversy. Not surprisingly, many of our viewers are confused by technical arguments that defy all comprehension. Here, Priya Somaya attempts to simplify ozone depletion for Ajay Sanglikar of Dharwar, Karnataka, Thenozi of Erode, Tamil Nadu, and of course, for all our other viewers.
The ozone layer is a stratospheric or upper atmospheric layer of air above the Earth, composed of a form of oxygen with 3 atoms to a molecule. Scientists say that ozone forms between 10 to 15 kilometers above the Earth, when high-energy ultraviolet light from the sun strikes oxygen molecules, splitting some of the 2-atom molecules apart. Free atoms attach to other oxygen molecules, making ozone. This layer is important because it absorbs harmful ultraviolet light from the sun. Between 1977 and 85, British scientists found that a larger hole formed every September and October in the ozone layer over the Antarctic. Scientists say that there are 3 possible reasons. The first is that nitric oxide chemicals produced naturally by the sun destroyed ozone. The second is that air welling up from the lower atmosphere pushes ozone aside. And thirdly, atmospheric chlorine compounds destroy ozone. In recent studies, more and more evidence points to chlorine from a group of chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs, used in industrial chemicals as being responsible for the whole. Certain CFCs are used in refrigerant chemicals in air conditioners and refrigerators. Others are used in fast food containers and insulation materials. Some are used as propellant in aerosol cans, and others to clean electronic parts because it penetrates tiny crevices where it can dissolve grease. What are the consequences of ozone depletion? The first is a sharp increase in skin cancer because more ultraviolet light will now hit the earth without being filtered. The second is changes in temperature, wind and rainfall, and a rise of the sea level. An unrelated ozone problem occurs at ground level ozone, which forms in a series of chemical reactions when urban air pollutants react in sunlight and oxygen. This ozone damages crops and is known to lower corn, wheat, soybean and peanut productivity. It also weakens trees, cracks rubber, fades textile dyes and erodes painted exteriors. In mid-September 1987, 24 countries met in Montreal, Canada and agreed to cut in half the use of ozone-destroying chemicals by 1999. The agreement also proposes to limit fire-suppressant chemicals called halons. The countries which signed the agreement included the US, Canada, Japan and the European Community. Already there is pressure on developing countries like India to phase out the use of CFCs. That's easier said than done because substitutes are expensive and controlled by multinationals. Besides, none of the developing countries contribute as much to the ozone as the West. Although a consensus on ozone depletion is emerging, it may take a few decades to implement. Just how much damage would have been caused by then is anybody's guess.
$250 million tons a year is extracted as fuel wood from our forests. At this rate, there will be no forests left in 50 years.